All right. Give me 1 second, one more second, please. It's been a while since I've hosted a largish Zoom meeting. I'm going to share my screen here.
It's lots of fun.
There we go. Can y'all see the first slide?
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Great. Thank you so much. Well, welcome everyone. Thank you for hopping on the call tonight. This is the Sierra Club meeting for turning accountability into action at the Texas Legislature. We'll dive into our recently published legislative scorecard and a whole lot more over the next hour. First, I just wanted to make sure y'all were aware that we're joined by several chapter staff, and thank you for taking time out of your evening to join us. We have Jordan Goodrich, our communications manager. We have Evgenia Spears, our water resources program coordinator. I apologize if I didn't get your title right. We also have Shane Johnson, our clean energy organizer, and Cyrus Reed, our legislative and conservation director, who we'll hear from in a little bit. But I'd like to give a quick overview of our agenda tonight on the next slide. There we go. We will start with some grounding statements to acclimate us to where we are, and a statement of purpose about why we're here tonight. I'll kick it over to Cyrus, who will share some insights and highlights from the legislature, which seems like 10 years ago, but it's really not that far in the past, and also some highlights or just general comments about the situational landscape at the legislature. Then I'll take it back to really dive into the nuts and bolts of the scorecard, how it was made, and how you can use it. We'll introduce then, or Jordan will introduce how you can help spread the word and leverage the scorecard for your own use as a constituent. And then we'll finish by talking about what comes next. 2026 seems like an interim year, seems like a quiet time in between sessions, but it's really not. And we'll share a little bit about what we have in store for the next few months. So just heading into a sort of a grounding moment here. Before we dive in, I'd just like to say a few words about what's been happening around us. I think we all acknowledge that this is a really difficult moment in our country. It's also a dangerous moment. And I'm sure many of us, and myself included, might be feeling powerless to do anything in the face of state oppression. And feeling this way can also feel paralyzing. And that's why we're glad you took the step to show up here tonight. What we talk about may in some ways feel kind of disconnected from what the Trump administration is doing. But the fact that we're gathering together to learn about holding our leaders accountable is an undeniable step towards justice. So thank you again for showing up. What has helped me frame what we do at the Sierra Club and the Lone Star chapter in times like these are some reminders about how change starts small, and building people power can and still does happen. So last week I came across this great podcast episode of a podcast called Next Comes What. I don't know if you've heard of it before, but it's by Andrea Pitzer, who is a renowned journalist who has studied dictatorships across the world and throughout history. I don't think we have time to share a clip, but we'll drop it in the chat, the link to the podcast in the chat. And if you have time to listen, I highly recommend listening to it, and especially paying attention to about the last 8 minutes or so. Some points that really resonated with me, and I'd like to share them because I think they're applicable to why we're here tonight. While there's military action and a blatant oil grab going on in Venezuela, and the brutality of ICE in Minnesota and elsewhere, Pitzer comes back to this question of how to deal with it as an individual, how to act when a fascist regime seems to have total control. Now, she acknowledges that, yes, we still need to react in the moment and show up for public demonstrations and fight back directly to these horrible actions. But she also talks about focusing on community action and putting pressure on representatives as a way we can start to claw back small restorations in the present. And I found that really moving and it resonated with me. She also reminds her listeners that because that progress can be made granularly, and it is okay to start at the small scale. A lot of this stuff might feel like it's small scale, but that's okay. It can be done by embracing specific policies. She named specific policies we know about but haven't adopted. She gave the example in her podcast of congestion pricing in New York City and how well that's been, or how effective that's been. But I think the point is applicable to many of the policies the Sierra Club advocates for at the Texas Capitol, like passing energy savings goals and funding smart water projects. Now, Pitzer also, and I'll move on with just one more point. She references an interesting and short piece by another journalist called Laura. Her name is Laura Helmuth, who points out that bad things are fast, and it doesn't take long to ruin things. And we've seen that happen over the past year. But building good things is slow. And that really resonated with me too. And I hope it resonates with you as we begin to talk about making change at the Texas Capitol. So, going into our meeting, a purpose for our meeting, we move into the substance. Let me just say that the purpose of the meeting is simple. It's to introduce you to the scorecard and share with you what we know about the state's legislators. But it's also more than that. We will walk you through our legislative scorecard and talk about the best and worst of the legislature last session. But tonight is really about thinking ahead and starting to build power and momentum so that we can advance better pro-environment, pro-people policies at the Texas Capitol. So really this, like tonight, is actually the beginning of our 2027 legislative program. And it begins with knowing who the people are at the legislature and learning what they did. And as we talk about what should happen next, I think it's really important that we stop thinking about the legislature as a once every other year event. We should think about it as a year-round effort because the special interests that stop good policies from becoming reality never take the interim year off. So we shouldn't either. So with that in mind, let's set the stage for 2027 by understanding what happened last year. I'd like to ask Cyrus to come off mute and discuss some of the major themes and insights and highlights from last session, as well as some of the key players, both positive and negative, that we should be aware of. And lastly, I'll just say, I know I'm rambling on here, but this is a lot to cover. We don't expect everyone here to be as familiar with the people or issues as we are, and that's okay. Pick and choose what matters to you most. Be curious, ask questions, come back to something later to learn more. It's all okay because this is a process we are working on together. So with that, I'll ask Cyrus to come off mute. Cyrus, are you ready to go?
Yeah, I am. Are you going to you're going to share the slides?
Yes, the slides will be shared with everyone who RSVP'd, even if you didn't make it.
Okay,
Or even if you have to
now are you going to share the slides?
Oh, can you not see it on your screen?
Oh, no. I see it shared. Huh. Switch tabs, Cyrus, someone tells me.
There you go. There you go.
Oh,
yeah, it should be in the
there
Zoom.
we go. Got it. Okay. I was there at the 89th legislative session, so I should know what happened. I was there a lot. but having the bullet points is very helpful. So, what happened in the 89th legislative session? And of course, I am referring to what happened in terms of the issues that Sierra Club works on. All of you know there were lots of other issues like giving private schools money, uh, which was a big issue. And during the special session, redistricting, which we did try to work on a little bit. But I'm more referring to the major policy priorities of the Sierra Club. So one was we really wanted to focus on energy affordability, energy savings programs. Unfortunately, the large electric utilities like CenterPoint and Encore and others really kind of fought us and ended up winning to keep the status quo of high electric bills. And those electric utilities and the gas utilities even got some sweetheart deals to make it easier for them to raise rates. So, unfortunate to say that. Um, and we really need more political leaders to spend their political capital on pro-environment and pro-people bills. There was a big focus on water infrastructure. I would say on the whole, it was positive in the sense that some of the initial legislation that was coming out of Senator Perry, we thought tilted too much towards water supply. We were able to work with the Texas House and get a pretty good bill passed that the voters then approved in Proposition 4 for more water infrastructure. But other important water bills that we worked on, and I know Evgenia is here, and she was the one working most hard on those from our team. But salinity standards for the coast and plastic nodal pollution, they really didn't go anywhere. We got them filed, they had hearings, but they didn't go anywhere. A lot of our time and focus was defending renewable energy and energy storage. There was a big focus in the Senate that went after those technologies that would have made it more expensive and harder for them to be built out. And we really had to work with a lot of folks in the House of Representatives to defeat the worst of those proposals. Frankly, both parties did react very much to the power of special interests, whether it was the large utilities I mentioned, but also nuclear subsidies, oil and gas, wastewater issues, and then, of course, Elon Musk and his SpaceX reared their ugly head to allow them to close beaches at the last minute. So those were all, sort of major themes from the legislature. Then, of course, in the special session, we had the flooding issues. And again, unfortunately, um, the biggest preventative things they could have done on flooding issues, they chose not to do. They did some good things, but they really ignored a lot of the what we felt were the best solutions. But just a reminder, it's a difficult place over there, the legislature. Of the 31 senators, 20, the Republicans have 20 of the 150 representatives, 88 are Republicans, and that means the Speaker of the House, Dustin Burrows, and Lieutenant Governor Dan Patrick really are the people behind the throne with the most power. They're the ones who appoint the committee chairs, et cetera. But we did have some aces. We're going to talk about the scorecard. All of these folks got 100%. So we've got one, two, three, four, five representatives and one senator. New Senator Molly Cook out of the Houston region. I know we got some folks from Houston. She did a great job. She wasn't on our key committees, but she always voted with the Sierra Club and stood up to special interest, as did Gina Hinojosa, who's now running for governor, Vicki Goodwin, who's running for lieutenant governor, Ana Maria Rodriguez Ramos, who is the chair of the Progressive Caucus and was a very useful ally, Terry Mesa from Dallas, and then John Bryant, also from that area. And he was a key figure for us on points of order. I will say there are some people who didn't score 100%, but we worked with very closely. So folks like Ron Reynolds and from Fort Bend County, Ana Hernandez from Houston, Rafael Anchia from Dallas, Senator Menendez from San Antonio. A lot of the success we had in the bills that we were able to pass was because of the efforts of those and other individuals, and even some Republican chairs that maybe didn't vote with us. Most of the, not a lot, but they were very instrumental especially in stopping bad bills. Folks like Ken King, chair of state affairs, and in a roundabout way, Todd Hunter, who led calendars, but of course also carried the redistricting bill, which we didn't like. But we did have some duds. I don't know if I'm going a little too slow, but
You're
Richard
fine. You're
Raymond
fine.
is a Democrat from Laredo, but he had by far the worst score of any Democrats. Um, and importantly, he was a key vote on state affairs. A lot of the bills that we were trying to stop went through state affairs. If he had stood with his Democratic compatriots, those bills would have never made it to the House floor, but he didn't. Mays Middleton had some of those very anti-renewable bills and generally did not vote well on any issue. He is now running for attorney general, so watch out. Daniel Alders is a relatively new member. He scored very low, but also he very much does not believe in climate change and tried to put into law some provisions that would not allow us to even consider climate change. Cody Vasut from the coast, 8% is not a very good score. He also had one of the anti-renewable bills. Eventually, we worked with others to make that bill less bad, but he was just sort of a sore spot on this in this. And then new Senator Adam Hinojosa from the Valley and up to Corpus. We thought we could work with him on things like desalination, beach access, but really just the opposite. He really followed corporate interests and especially the interest of one Elon Musk, which was very disappointing given the district that he represents.
Yeah,
Um,
and I'll just add that there were representatives and senators that scored worse than these five electeds. The reason why we're pointing these folks out, and we'll get into this term in a little bit, is they spent political capital on anti-environment and anti bills that would make bills that would make utility bills more expensive, things that the Sierra Club would oppose.
very much so. We also gave paper plate awards, and I'll call these sort of the in-between awards. Folks who uh, weren't totally on our side and weren't totally against us, but we just wished they would have done better, and we need to put some pressure on them. One is Senator Colcourse from East Texas. She really, unfortunately, led the anti-renewable, anti-storage contingent in the Senate, was very vociferous about it. On the other hand, on some issues like protecting oysters and oyster fisheries or protecting groundwater or making sure that the big Senate bill would not allow exports of fresh groundwater out of the district. She was very good. And so it's unfortunate that she took these anti-clean energy positions. We're hoping that we can put a little pressure on her to not do so, but then work on the things where she's aligned with us. Judith Zaffarini is, Dean of the Senate, long-term senator, never misses a vote, great individual. And she carried some important bills like bills on kind of solar access and making sure people have information about solar and there aren't bad actors. Unfortunately, she made a lot of noise about doing things on hydrogen sulfide, and we very much tried to work with her. But at the end of the day, she didn't push those bills forward. She only did one study bill, but didn't do any regulatory bills. At the end of the day, she really buckled under the pressure of industry. I will say this, Matt, you know this, everybody. After we put out our scorecard, got a call from her environmental person saying, can we meet with you about hydrogen sulfide? So I think they got the message, but we need to keep pressure on these folks so that she can go back to being not a C student, but a B or an A student. Nathan Johnson, who's now running for attorney general, but is still a senator. He's a very good senator, very smart, generally votes with Sierra Club. Um, he's in a difficult position as a Democrat in the Senate. It's hard for him. We understand that. That being said, he filed some bills on distributed energy resources, which went the exact opposite from bills he had passed the session before and really were pro industry. And then he initially filed a bill on an energy savings program, which we were a little iffy on. He did work with us to improve it, but at the end of the day, it was probably more in the interest of the utilities than the interest of the people. he's in a difficult position, but again, I think we need to continue to put pressure on even our allies to do the right thing and be pro people and not be pro polluter or pro corporate interests. And I think with that, I'm turning it over to you, Matt. Is that true?
Yeah. Yeah. Thank you so much, Cyrus. Good summary. Your memory is still pretty good. I don't think I could do that. Of course, you hold a lot of the relationships that the Sierra Club has over at the Capitol, so that makes sense. Um, as I dive into the guts of the scorecard, if it's not already shared in the chat, feel free to tinker around on the scorecard website and find your state rep, state senator, take a look at the bills. We're gonna turn it over to get some reactions to what you have, what you see in a little bit. But yeah, I mean, I think the place to start this section is explaining just how this legislative scorecard is different from the other scorecards. Our objective is to create a resource, and a resource that's more than just a summary of votes. Many scorecards I've seen out there feel somewhat, I don't know if it's fair to say, superficial, not much more than a spreadsheet of floor votes. So when we revisited this idea and revitalized our scorecard several years ago, we wanted it to be a clearer reflection of every lawmaker's values through their actions and inactions. So that's what drove a lot of this. And when it comes to the environment, to protecting clean energy, keeping bills affordable, preserving our water resources, we focused on two simple questions that ended up guiding a lot of this work. Do your state legislators have the courage to stand up against special interests? And do they spend political capital fighting for the environment and its people? And what I mean by political capital is, for example, anyone can file a good bill. Some file good bills and let them sit and don't fight for them, while others use their connections, start to build coalitions, call in favors of committee chairs to try and get that bill passed, work across the aisle to try and get that bill passed for a full House vote. That's what I mean by political capital. So answering those two questions is really at the heart of this exercise. The way we tried to answer these questions involved a lot of legwork and a lot of note taking. We needed to pick votes, first and foremost, that reflected the Sierra Club's legislative priorities, but votes that also carried a significant amount of weight to them. We also needed to acknowledge that not all votes had the same level of impact on the environment or our communities. So, for example, the bill that created the Energy Waste Advisory Committee, which we supported, it was a good bill and it could lead to more energy efficiency improvements, but it didn't have a comparable impact that, say, HB 49 had, which limited liability for oil and gas producers with regard to disposal of wastewater. That had a lot more weight, that had a lot more impact on Texans and their everyday lives and the environment. So we weighted the votes by how high we believed the stakes were for each vote. So the higher the stakes, the more their yes or no vote counted in our scoring. We also weighted the value of each vote. We also weighted the value of each of the votes according to how hard it was to persuade lawmakers to vote the right way. And that helped us see more into that question of, did they have the courage to vote against polluting special interests and vote for their constituents' best interests? We needed to incorporate actions beyond the floor votes too. That meant tracking what happened in committees, where we observed, or what we observed behind the scenes. For example, when a lawmaker worked hard to pull votes together on a good amendment. These sorts of things are critical to answering those two questions, but keeping the scorecard to floor votes wouldn't show that. And finally, we needed a way to incorporate those behind the floor vote actions. So we actually made adjustments to many lawmakers' scores, both adding points for good action and taking away points for bad actions. So I know that's a lot to absorb, but what it all turns out to be is the final score that you see in the final product. Now I'm going to stop screen share for a sec and call in Jordan. Jordan is going to be my volunteer for the night to look up to pretend that you have never that this is your first time seeing the scorecard. Let's look up your actual lawmakers. Jordan, you ready?
Yeah, let's do it. It's going to be kind of hard to pretend that I've never seen this before. Like it's the only thing I've looked at for the last couple months, but we'll test my acting skills tonight.
I've seen you on Instagram. You play a good part.
Thanks. Okay. Hi, y'all. My name's Jordan. I live in San Antonio. So my House member is Representative Philip Cortez, and my state senator is Roland Gutierrez. I really want to know how they performed on issues that I care about in the last session. So, Matt, can you tell me where I should even start?
Yeah. So go down to the table of contents. Let's review. What's here. I talked a little bit already about the methodology, and we went through some highlights and insights. So we can skip past the at a glance. I highly recommend going through the frequently asked questions too, if you really want to dig deep into the methodology and why certain scores are the way they are. But probably save that for another time. The Cyrus did a good job of going through the aces, the duds, the paper plates. I think it's worth after this going through the chairs, because those folks are the gatekeepers to a lot of the legislation and what their actions. We ended up adjusting them quite a bit. I don't remember Philip Cortez being on any of those key committees. Certainly not a chair, being a member of the Democratic Party. But so let's go all the way down to House scores and voting table. Now, if you're unfamiliar with any of these bills, the section right before it will have descriptions of what they are. But I think I might have jumped the gun a little bit, Jordan. Do you know the district number for that Philip Cortez and what district he represents?
Yeah, he represents District 117 here in San Antonio.
Okay, so these are arranged by district number. So let's scroll down to 117.
And
All
just
right, I
for those
see.
of you who have gone to our lobby days, you know that it's a lot easier to drop off a one pager to the Senate offices because there's only 31. I did that today for some things, than it is to the House where there's 150. That takes a lot longer.
Indeed. All right, so if you're so this is color coded, red and green. Red basically means bad, green basically means good. We picked bills that we supported and bills that we were against. The way you can tell is by that top row. If it says against and it's red, that was a bad bill. We wanted them to vote no. So as you can see in John Bryant's example, there's a green N. There's a green circle with an N on it. He voted no on that HB 14. HB 14 was actually a nuclear subsidies bill that gave hundreds of millions of dollars to the new nuclear plants that we were opposed to. How did Cortez do?
Let's see. It looks like he voted yes, if I'm reading the table correctly.
Gotcha. All right. So in this case, I think we weighted this bill pretty highly. So that would count more than just, 5 or 6 points off. That was probably more than 10 points against him because it mattered so much. What else are you seeing, Jordan?
It's looking like he voted in favor of a couple of our good bills, like HB 1359. And then as I move down the table, I'm seeing an A here. What does that A mean?
A means absent. Yeah, so he wasn't there for the amendment. This was an HB 3556. We actually scored based on the vote on an amendment to this bill. And it had to do with it was a pretty bad anti-renewable bill, but the amendment improved the bill significantly. So that's why we were in favor of it. But he wasn't there for it. He wasn't there for it, so we couldn't count that for him. And this is a good moment to point out that if they were excused in the journal, we took that out of their calculations. We also, if they were absent, we reached out to them and asked, if you were there, how would you have voted? So we gave them a shot to correct the record even beyond the journal. So if there's an A there, I believe that means they either didn't respond the right way, they didn't respond, or they still wouldn't have voted in for the Sierra Club position.
Interesting. And so up here, if we go back to the John Bryant example, this AE, would that be an excused absence?
Exactly. Yeah. AE stands for absent but excused.
Cool.
Yeah. It looks like there was one other, let's see, 117. Yeah, HB 49. That's that bill that I mentioned a few minutes ago that limited the liability on the oil and gas industry for oil and gas wastewater and any ramifications that come from dumping it into rivers and streams. So he was wrong on that, and that counted quite a bit. So with those 3 votes not counting in his favor, I think that's where you get that final score of 66%.
66%. Could be better.
Yeah, could be a lot better. All right, so I hope that helps sort of like demystify about how you read a scorecard and what all the what the table can show you. If you stop screen sharing, I'll get back to our slide deck. All right, so I'd like to ask y'all if you've had a chance to look up your legislator. We're curious to know what your thoughts are, what you think, what your opinion is. If you don't know who your state representative is or state senator, I think we can drop in the chat, if it hasn't already, a link about to find out who it is. And it's a Who Represents Me tool that the state has. It's very easy to use. You just plug in your address and they tell you who your member of Congress is, who your state senator is, who your state representative down to local government. And yeah, let's, I want to see if there's any, let me do the gallery view for a second. If anyone wanted to come off mute or raise your hand to share or ask a question, I'm happy to entertain that.
Yeah, John Howard from Houston, and Christina Morales is my representative, and I understand even though she's got a Hispanic background, she voted to support the police in stopping and asking information of drivers of their citizenship, sort of a thing. That sort of struck me as a liberal.
That's a good point. I thank you for adding that, John. Something that we always try to encourage people who do use our scorecard to do is look at other organizations' scorecards, because we keep our scorecard limited to the legislative issues that we work on at the Capitol. So a lot of energy related issues, a lot of water related issues, habitat, things of that nature. But it doesn't give you the full picture of a comprehensive view of every lawmaker. So, organizations that track social justice, that work on equality, LGBTQ rights, things of that nature. There are organizations that produce their own scorecard. We really encourage you to look at those as well to get a full picture.
Thanks.
Mm-hmm. Anyone else have a quick comment or would like to share? Otherwise, we can move on. Jason?
Yeah, I had a comment. So I looked at the scorecard. My representative is Denise Villalobos. She is not, I'd say, in alignment with a lot of what the Lone Star chapter advocates for. And her record shows that, right? I was wondering if you had any recommendations on how someone like me that has a representative that isn't very environmentally friendly, how I could kind of use this scorecard in a meeting with them to sort of, advocate for more pro-environmentally friendly policies.
Love the question, Jason. I think it actually tees up our next section. It's sort of like what to do now.
Cool. Okay, awesome.
Yeah. So I think Jordan, this is your section, right?
Yep, that's me. If
All
it
right.
involves trying, yeah,
You can't resist referencing this show.
never.
I love it.
Anyone know this show? Can you put it in the chat or shout it out for non-existent bonus points?
West Wing.
It's the West Wing. I have been trying to get Matt to watch this show since my first day on the job. So if any of y'all want to bug him about it with me, we can join forces. Thanks so much for that. Like, honestly, excellent. What is the basketball term? When you bounce it off the back of the hoop and then somebody else goes in for the slam dunk. I really appreciate it. I'm excited to talk about what we can do with this tool and how we can utilize it to communicate with our legislators and also to draw attention to the things that are happening and that are not happening at the Capitol. I've had the privilege of getting to talk to a lot of folks over the last year about what being engaged in the legislative session looks like, and also how intimidating and intentionally mysterious it can be. It feels like a space where everyday Texans aren't allowed. And I think it's kind of become my personal mission to empower everyone to truly believe that it is the people's house. It is where you belong. It is where you should show up and is where you should make your voice and your needs heard, because it's very important that our representatives hear from us 10 times more than they hear from special interests, which is difficult, but something we can do if we all do it together. So what's next? Go ahead and go to the next slide, please. Here's a list. And I want us to pause for a second and go bullet by bullet. Don't try to take on every single action at the same time. You're going to get overwhelmed. It happens to me all the time. We're going to start at the tippy top. At the Lone Star chapter, we want to make it super easy for you to have your first point of contact, or maybe it's your 100th point of contact, but we still want to make it super duper easy for you to contact your legislators. So what my colleagues are going to do now is share what we call an action alert in the chat. They're actually going to share 2 action alerts. I want us to walk through them together. And I want y'all to decide now, based on your legislator scores, based on what you know about them, how you want to communicate. Are you happy with how they performed, or are you not happy with how they performed? And this is our first example of how we can use the scorecard as our tool. It can help us shape our message that we want to communicate to our legislators. It can be really hard to go through each bill and each vote individually, but if you can kind of wrap your head around a single score, it can help you to communicate to them your opinions and feelings on their actions. And so we want you to be able to use these action alerts to communicate that succinctly and clearly and get that awesome feeling of, I did it. I took the step to talk to my legislators. So take a moment to look at the chat and pick if you would like to send the, hey, you did a good job and I need you to do more action alert, or if you would like to do the, what in the world was that? I need you to do anything at all action alert. Now, once you go into the action alert page, you're going to be asked to enter your name, your email address, your phone number. You can do that. And then you can send a personal message. You can edit the existing message. And when you're ready, you can submit them. And when you submit them, go ahead and do a reaction on the Zoom screen. You can send a heart, you can send a celebration, you could change your screen. Shane can do this cool thing where he does a thumbs down and thumbs down goes all over the screen. I try not to take it personally when it happens. But let us know when you're done. I believe you, Shane. In the chat, he says it's an accident.
Jordan, based on people's address, does it automatically get sent to that rep and senator, or do we gather them and send them?
Great question. For this type of action alert, it will automatically go to your representative and your senator. And I was speaking actually I want to say it was a week or two ago, I called Representative Cortez's office about something because now I call all the time about all of the things. And that's what we want y'all to feel empowered to do too. And the staffer that I spoke to that day asked for like specific information about what I was calling about, and he said that it's helpful to know specifics because they catalog the volume of the topic that they're hearing about. And so one of the things that we want to happen here is we're sending these action alerts and they're seeing similar language around strong energy legislation. They're seeing language around pro clean energy, protections for clean energy, water protections. And the more they see that by volume, they're going to catalog it, and that information is going to get to the representative and the state senator. So this makes a difference. It feels like a couple buttons, but it helps. And it's the first rung on like this kind of ladder of engagement that we're trying to create. So thank you all for taking this action alert. I'll go through the other bullets. Some of them are things that you'll need to do on your own. Some of them are things that we can help you with if you're interested and ready to take these next few steps. Of the next being posting on social media. As soon as the scorecard was finished, I made a video highlighting Representative Cortez and Senator Gutierrez's scores, and I tagged them on social media. And I got a DM from Representative Cortez's office. Thank you so much for sharing this. We appreciate your input. And I thought that was really cool. And I think that right now in kind of this like information era and this social media era, publicly having the, taking the time to publicly call out or call in a representative or a senator makes a big difference. So take that step to post about it. And if you're not sure how you want to post about it, or if you want to make a video that you haven't done in the past, you want to use a new editing tool, I welcome you to email me. They put it in the chat. So please feel free to copy that down, write that down. I would love to talk to you about using your presence on social media to get in contact with your legislators. I see two hands. I'll go Becky and then Cyrus.
Okay. A lot of this makes great sense. But part of it is confusing because my representative is Tellerico, and of course he's gone on to greater things, we hope. And Sarah Eckert is my senator statewide, and she's gone on, I hope. And Michael McCall represents me, and he has thankfully gone on, I hope. But I've been switched to another district anyway. So it's hard to know right now what really makes a difference. I mean, obviously people are still working their jobs in theory on the national level, but statewide, people that have gone on to other things, it seems like they might not even be, doing anything. So are they doing anything? I know Cyrus said he dropped off stuff today. So what's
I
happening at
talked
the state
to
capitol?
Senator Eckhart's chief of staff, chief legislative person today. They are actively putting in requests for interim studies. We
Oh,
hope that she can win statewide, but she still stays as a state senator if she doesn't win as comptroller. So,
oh wow.
Yeah.
yeah,
I didn't know that. I thought she had to resign.
no, she doesn't have to resign because her office isn't up. It's not her year to run.
Right.
That's
Yeah.
great.
Tallarico,
Yeah.
I doubt he's engaged right now.
But
Right.
it's worth noting that we're still in we're still in their term. So they are still
Right.
active House reps unless they have resigned already. So in theory, even though they might be spending all of their time campaigning for a new office, he is still a state rep. There is still interim charges to which we'll get into in a little bit to advocate for.
Okay, great. Thank you.
And I wanted to respond to Jordan about tagging people on social media because today I happened to see that Dr. Suleiman Lalani um, tweeted out about the bill that we supported, the energy waste bill, whatever it was, 5623, and saying he was a co-author, which I didn't realize. But I just thanked him for doing that and said how important it was to continue to work to reduce demand on the grid. So he honestly didn't do much on that bill. He just signed on as a co-author, but just thanking people is a way to create that goodwill. And then, you know, next time I go to his office, I can say, oh, by the way, thanks for being a co-sponsor of that great bill. We're looking forward to actually being implemented, which it hasn't yet. But so I think social media is a really good way to keep in touch with folks. Even Representative Villalobos, Jason. It's a good way to
Right.
tag her on stuff.
Jordan, what's next?
Can I
Well,
ask
I
a
was
quick
actually,
question?
Oh,
How do we
yeah.
know who's resigned? Like I have Vicky Goodwin, so I don't know. Has she resigned?
I don't think she's resigned, but she, like Tallarico, is going to be spending a lot of her time campaigning. That's a really good question, Carol. I wish there was like a central database of open seats, or, a list of people who aren't running for reelection. I've come across a few, but I can't remember the name that I the name of there's a blogger out there that keeps a pretty up-to-date list. Once I think of it, I will share it with you and anyone else who wants to keep tabs.
Okay, thanks.
Is it
Yep.
Lone
Thanks,
Star
Matt.
left?
I think that's one of them. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, I'm going to have Shane and Evgenia share a couple more links so that you can get involved with our Water for People in the Environment Committee and our Keep the Power on monthly meetings. But then I'll pass it back to you so we can talk about what's going on now.
All right. One second. Okay, yeah. So we have to spend a few minutes before we call it looking ahead to 2026. And for that, I'm going to ask Cyrus to go over some key dates at the legislature, and then finish with a little bit of what the Sierra Club has in the works for this year.
So the legislative session really never quite ends. It ended officially the regular session at the end of May or beginning of June last year. Then obviously we had several special sessions. But now we're in the period called the interim. And what's happening right now is that the Speaker of the House, Dustin Burrows, and the Lieutenant Governor, Dan Patrick, have asked members for their input on what are called interim charges. So the Speaker has given a deadline of February 9th. The Lieutenant Governor has given a deadline of February 20th. Now, members are putting together their ideas and submitting them, but it also means we stakeholders, lobbyists, special interest, if you go to the Capitol, people are making the rounds and saying, Senator or Representative, I hope you'll look at this issue. Evgeny and I went the other day to talk about, Jason, you'll appreciate this, about the need to protect bays and estuaries from desal plants, and we want that to be an interim charge. How do we get better regulations around that? So that's what's happening now. There are primaries March 3rd. We expect the lieutenant governor and speaker after the primaries, probably in late March, to release those interim studies. And then from April really through December, there will be interim hearings. Some of them will be Austin, some of them might be held outside of Austin if they, deal with specific issues. There will also be what are called legislative budget board hearings. Those are the initial public meetings or hearings on the budget, what state agencies are going to be asking for next year. November 3rd is obviously the general election. And then, believe it or not, November 9th of this year is the first day legislators and legislators-elect can begin filing legislation. So even though the legislative session hasn't begun until 2027, we'll start to see legislation that's filed. A lot of it will be, let's call it red meat, maybe not, what people put out as initial ideas, not necessarily what will pass. The actual legislative session will begin January 12th, and it runs for 140 days. So January 12th to May 31st. So that seems like a long way away, but right now people are coming up with ideas and asking for interim studies as we speak. And we did the same. We've been doing the same.
Right on. Thank you, Cyrus. And yeah, there ain't no rest in the interim, right? I think we should, I'm going to repeat that to myself every morning. If you were with us last year during our legislative program, you might have known that we tried to get into a rhythm of meeting with volunteers and with interested folks on a biweekly, and it ended up turning out to be like a weekly basis when things got really busy. I think we want to start meeting again. We want to start meeting early this year. So you've signed up for this meeting. If you've RSVP'd, you will get an invitation to attend the first 2026 Legislative Action Network meeting. I think we're going to have it sometime in February and get into a regular habit of meeting, talking, organizing, building together. So be on the lookout for that. As Cyrus mentioned, the interim charges is its own sort of beast, and we're going to look for you and for everyone to bring constituent support and constituent pressure to ask those lawmakers to study these topics and get them expecting good legislation to come out of it. We also want to really talk more about getting face-to-face time with your elected officials. So we're developing some support structure for y'all to do visits to your legislator's district office, because they're not spending a lot of time in Austin these days. They do show up, but not at the frequency of during session. It would be great to get some face-to-face time with them in their district office. And I got to credit Jordan for this idea. We had a lobby day during the session. I think the yin to that yang is an accountability day during the interim. So we're going to work on an idea to hopefully bring folks to Austin to get them, visit their lawmakers at their capital office, and also use it as an opportunity to strategize about our legislative agenda and ways we can push forward next year. There's also a lot of really talented volunteer leaders that have showed up time and time again through this work during session and during the interim. And we know that they can help raise our game to a new level. So we want to begin to talk with those folks about forming, I don't want to call it a legislative committee, but like some sort of volunteer-led body that can help us with capacity and strengthen our work at the Capitol. So be on the lookout for more news on that, as well as being a part of helping us set our 2027 legislative agenda. Now, we only have about a minute or two left, and we always try to save room for Q&A. And if I can stay over a few minutes. I hope some staff can too, just in case. But yeah, Cyrus mentioned it. We did not talk much about the midterm elections tonight, but that is intentional because for compliance reasons, we have to keep this effort focused on legislative advocacy and accountability. But the elections will no doubt have a huge effect on the next legislature and our prospects for success. If you'd like to get more involved in our political work, please reach out to me individually. My email address, matt.johnson@sierraclub.org. You can also visit the website of our political committee, the Sierra Club Political Committee of Texas. That's turntexasgreen.org. And our political chair, River Hudgens, so they would be happy to talk with anyone who's interested in getting more involved in electing more green, pro-environment, pro-people candidates to office. So with that, I'll close this out and I'll stop share for a second and go to gallery view. I want to again thank everyone for coming out tonight. I know you didn't have to. There's a lot of demands on your time, but you showed up to something that we put together. And personally, I am so thankful and appreciative that I got to spend an hour and change with y'all. So any last words, Jordan or Osiris, before we wrap?
There was a question about how do we determine kind of our legislative priorities. And just to answer that, in the past, it's generally been kind of staff driven, and then we've shared it with our XCOM and some key volunteers. But in light of this effort, I think we could, start with coming up with some ideas, but then invite all of you in future calls to kind of add your 2 cents. But we always do get it sort of what our priorities are. We do get it approved by our executive committee. So there's buy-in from the organization. But we can talk about that at a future meeting about kind of what our priority is going to be in 2027.
Jordan, any final words?
I'll just echo your thanks. I'm so grateful that y'all decided to spend some of your Thursday evening with us. And I really look forward to working alongside y'all more over the next while.
Absolutely. Well, thanks again, y'all, and take care. Hopefully we'll be in touch soon.